I just started reading the book about the Wheel of Consent, which is called Receiving and Giving or something like that. Receiving and Gifting. You know, I always forget, but it's going to be right here. And at the very beginning, she's talking about this practice of how to access more of your pleasure. Now, the last video I had talks about presence and how that's a doorway into your pleasure. Great. Today, we're going to be talking about like actively asking yourself some really powerful questions. And what I thought really is interesting about this too is it shows you so much about yourself. So the first part goes, what do you want me to do for you? And because of this book is about consent and things like that, she reframes it as, what touch would you like? Right? So they're focused on touch in this moment. And then the second question is, what do you want to do to me? Or what touch do you want to do to me? And what's really interesting is they were talking about how we can have a sense of like, okay, I want this other person to do something to me, right? Okay, maybe I want a hug. Awesome. You know, so you get the sense of like, okay, I have the sense of like how I want to receive touch and that is pleasurable to me. But the second question is really interesting and powerful because she goes, how do you want to touch me? But it's for your pleasure. And have you ever thought about that, right? Like often we're offering touch so that the other person feels good. We're doing it for their pleasure. We're so focused on how does this impact the other person that we lose sight of like, hey, this can be a pleasurable experience for me. It's funny because she talked about in the book how she would ask people those questions as she's facilitating them and like accessing more self-awareness. And some of them would just get really stuck, just be like, I don't even know what this question means. That I can touch something for my pleasure. So I'm curious, like as you even hear that as an option of touching someone or something for your pleasure, how does that feel to even ask yourself that question? And what if you didn't even have to start with a person? Because I know that we can get all up in our mind about people and things and what they need and like what's happening because we might have a role that we often play. But what if you have a stone and you think to yourself, how? There we go. Wait, no. There. How can I touch this? How do I want to touch this? Like, how do I want to touch it? I want to explore the fact that it's so smooth. I want to feel into how it's pretty heavy, actually. I like that I like feeling that it's cold. It's a little bit cold. But mostly I just like that it's smooth, right? So I'm exploring it for my pleasure. I'm exploring it because I want to. And even if you exchange out the word pleasure for want, right? Desire. How do you want to touch something? Because you want to, right? And you would have to use touch too. Like that sense of like, what do you want to do just because you want to? And as we explore these topics of like consent and pleasure and things like that, it's really interesting because to me, my mind immediately goes to how we are often in situations where we just have to do something, whether we want to or not. And, you know, we're having to survive in these capitalist systems. And to have it that we don't get to just survive. We have to figure out how to survive. We have to work towards surviving. That the default is you don't survive, which is insane. But that's kind of the systems that we're in. It's the reality of that. And so then when you ask yourself, oh, what do I want to do because I want to? It can feel like a really foreign question because we're not often in that situation where we get to even ask that. Yeah, what is that bringing up? Whereas we're even talking about that? That sense of, what do I want to do just because I want to? And then you add in that complexity of relationship and how you normally show up around other people and like the roles that you play. Now there's another person in front of you. What do you want to do with this person because you want to? And I really love too, as she's talking about this in the book, that just because you tell them, I want to do this because I want to, it has to be inside their limitations, right? Like obviously you're not going to do something to someone they don't want. They're agreeing with you about that. But there's this element of even being willing to admit to yourself what you want. And that vulnerability of showing up and communicating that to another person, however that is. It doesn't have to be in a sexual relationship, it could be something else. And then I think it would be really interesting. So like I'm really excited for when I can start facilitating again. I look forward to facilitating because I have ideas on how we could do this in a way where we could play with it, like with someone saying like no, right? So like let's play with offering what it is that we truly want. Then the other person saying, but like for a whole made up reason, right? For a completely crazy reason why they can't do that, but they can do something similar or something else, right? So if someone says like, well, I want to be hugged for 5 minutes, they could say, okay, well, I can't levitate and hug you from off the ground or something insane, right? That's not even like a real thing. But I can have our feet touch for 5 minutes, right? Or I'd be like, well, unfortunately, my hands are tied behind my back, so I can't actually hug you with my arms, but I could hug your toe with my toe, right? So you just have this like really funny reasons why like you can't do something. So the other person gets the practice of saying no for whatever reason. You get the practice of saying, hey, I want this, requesting something, and then finding a middle ground. Because then you get to say like, oh, do I want that? Maybe I want something slightly different, right? Maybe I just want us to sit next to each other and lean. I think there's a lot of ways to play with that, right? Because I think in a sense, like when you allow yourself to be playful with these things, it helps to ease more into the vulnerability of one of those times when you're like really asking for something. Maybe someone actually really has a limit and they need to actually say that, right? And then they can offer a different solution or meet them in the middle somewhere. Or just say no. And then you get to experience the vulnerability of receiving no. So, yeah, I'm really excited about this book. I know, I'm always I'm reading multiple books at one time. I will get back to the other book study that we're doing very soon because I'm actually really excited about chapter 3. But this is really interesting. Oh, it's called The Art of Receiving and Giving, The Wheel of Consent. So just exploring that sense of, like, what do you actually want? Have you allowed yourself to touch things and the world because you desire it, so that you experience pleasure from how you're doing that? Then I wonder too, like how you could expand that into how you show up. Am I showing up in the world in a way that I actually want to, because I want to, because it makes me happy, because it gives me pleasure? Or am I showing up because I feel like I have to? Am I showing up because I'm thinking about how other people will perceive me, and then that's going to impact everything? You notice I'm in a different place. Because I think that was part of my thing, is that I was in the other room, the study, and it's cold. It's been cold. And I don't like I like that window because of the light, but I didn't like sitting there because it was cold. And then I just was like, you know what? Then stop making that a requirement. That's clearly getting in the way. It wasn't the only thing, because I was focused on other things also. But like, oh, I actually like this room. I like that it's warm. I like that it's cozy. I like that it's right in front of the heater. And I love looking out this window. And it still gives me nice lighting. So like, there you go. What if even the practice that I want to be at, which is creating these videos, can be in the process, can the process even in of itself be pleasureful to me too? Or I can add more of that in. Like, it doesn't have to be 100%, right? But like, how can I add more of that in and more of that in, What if we invite ourselves to that more and more? Like, okay, how much am I tolerating that I don't really have to be tolerating if I just allow myself to admit what I actually want? Because there's probably a lot more in life that is available to you that you actually want, that isn't actually even that scary to make changes about, than you've been allowing yourself to see. So I'd be curious if you were to explore that as well, what you would discover. What am I tolerating? I mean, sometimes it's hard because we realize we're tolerating things that will require like a potential conflict to change. Yes, that can be scary too. But then there's lots of things where we've decided in our mind we have to do something a certain way. No one's actually telling us we have to. Or we looked around at the world and we thought we've kind of decided there must be a social rule about this. But maybe there really isn't. Or it doesn't have to matter to you. Right? If it's not hurting anybody else, then what if you actually explored what you want? Now that is another step towards more pleasure in your life. So, thank you for joining me here today. We'll talk more about pleasure, consent, relationship anarchy, all sorts of other things on this channel. My name is Lux. I would like to meet you. Introduce yourself in the comments, and we'll be back here again very soon.